Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Roger Cartee. He's back on the show to talk about the possible restoration of the Newport Grandstand. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, you were back on with two of your comrades a few weeks ago. Just at the very early, maybe even a few months ago, at the very early stages of trying to restore the Gardner Park Grandstand. How is it going?
Well, we're at the stage now where we have an engineering firm that has been to the grandstand. They've done a structural analysis, and we're waiting now to hear the results. It'll probably be 3 or 4 weeks, maybe even longer. We don't know for sure. They're right in their busy season, and it'll depend on how soon they can get to finishing it off for us. But it's going to be quite detailed, so it's going to be a lot of work on their part.
So you've been through there a few times, or at least members of your committee have, because I know you have gone through with some local contractors and the engineers. You've been able to read any of them yet, what they're thinking?
Well, I can tell you that we've had 3 very reputable contractors go into the building, end to end, top to bottom, front to back, and their comments have been to us, there's nothing in here we can't repair.
Right.
And the engineers, on the other hand, have to be a little more discreet in what they say. So we let them go in, let them do their job, and they'll tell us what their results are after. But we feel very confident. A number of us have been in that building since we were young kids, playing ball at Gardner Park. So we feel that, again, there's nothing in there that can't be repaired. You go by and look at it, and it's ugly looking.
Right.
But, it hasn't had a lot of tender loving care over the years, and it's just kind of been left there to sit in the rain and the snow without a whole lot of work done on it.
You posted a photo online, which really intrigued me. I can't remember what year it was, but it didn't look that much different even back in the old days.
Could have been the one in 1963. It was a baseball game, and it showed the players underneath the jury-rigged dugout in front of the grandstand.
Right.
It just had a roof on it and benches underneath, and it had the old shingles. It also had, and a lot of people don't remember it, the front of the grandstand from the floor to the railing was open, had screening.
Really?
So you could see through that. You can see that in that picture. That was covered over sometime after that.
Right.
But that was still had the fence on top of the grandstand that prevented foul balls from going over into the river, saved a lot of baseballs over the years.
So what year did we come up? I've done some research on it, and you've done some research, but I can't remember offhand. What year did we basically come up that it was built?
Construction started in 1939.
Right.
Was completed in, I say completed, to be around 1941. There are a number of newspaper clippings that show that the Newport Frontiers were playing at Gardner Park in 1941. Had teams from Groveton and St. Johnsbury and Berlin, New Hampshire that were coming over to play. And one clipping shows like 3 or 4 games there all in 1 week.
Right.
And that was 1941. So we know they were playing in 1941. And it took a couple of years to get the field built and the grandstand built. So it's been there for a while. It's been there for 80 plus years.
From what I understand from going through old newspapers and talking to people, World War II generation age, a lot of things too, once Pearl Harbor happened in 41, is a lot of these recreational things came to a screeching halt. So, so very possibly even, I don't know what it did to Gardner Park, whether it brought their ball play into an end, but I bet you it lessened it to a degree because a lot of the guys were away at war, and it just, it wasn't recreation took a back burner to winning the war.
There's a yearbook photo from Newport High School in 1943
Right.
that shows the football team all in the bleachers and all that. My uncle Larry Vanier's in the photo,
Right.
and you can just see a corner of the grandstand in the background.
Right.
So Newport High School was playing football down there. They were playing baseball down there at that time. And in the caption it says a lot of these boys didn't realize that at the end of their school year they were going off to war. And so that it did take a lot of athletes out of the area. But I'm convinced that the field was still being used for a variety of things. But I think football and baseball was still being played down there.
I seem to remember, 'cause I didn't attend many events at the grandstand, but it seems like one year there was a carnival right in front of it, because they've had the carnival sometimes now over towards the skating area, but it
Right.
seems like they've had carnivals over in that general area too.
They probably had them wherever they wanted to put them.
Right.
I can remember one year them putting it right on top of the newly sodded Little League baseball diamond when I was the Little League commissioner, and we had quite a row over that when I came down one morning and all the carnival gear was parked on top of the Little League field and dug it all up.
Are you old enough to remember the carnivals that were held over by where North Country High School is now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they had a grandstand there too.
Sure, they had, as a matter of fact, down towards the area where the Career Center is.
Right.
The baseball field was right in where the parking lot is, and you can see the grandstand for the baseball diamond and the grandstand for the park. There are a number of aerial photos in the Richardson Cartee collection at the Old Stone House that show both grandstands there, and you can also see the grandstand at Gardner Park. So those were taken back in the early 40s because the Newport Frontiers used to play up in front of the whole high school.
Right.
And when that grandstand was torn down, that's when they moved to Gardner Park. So that was early 40s. That had to have been around 41.
Right. I know they had carnivals there. I know they had carnivals at that Gaines Park. That's
Yes.
right, Gaines Park. They had it there because Donald Farrar, I interviewed him when he was 100, and he celebrated his 100th birthday the same year as Newport did. He was born in 1918, and in 2018, the city of Newport became a city. And he said that when he was a kid, the trains used to go with the carnival, would just stop right there, and being a kid, they would they would hire local kids to lug stop, and they got to see animals they'd never see in the Northeast Kingdom. So how come those grandstands were torn down just to make way for North Country?
Yeah, I think that land was given to the high school. Right. Although the baseball grandstand was in really bad disrepair. Right. It was not in good condition at all. The other grandstand, I think, was probably in reasonably decent shape, but it wasn't being used that much more. They used to have races over there, horse races, car races. Yeah. It wasn't being used a lot, and they had given the land to North Country, so I can't guarantee that's why it was torn down, but it was about that time. I know the Newport High School used to go up there and practice baseball up there.
Right. And this isn't your first time in trying to save this current grandstand, is it? Weren't you involved in another move a few years ago?
Well, back in 2014, there was a lot of talk about the grandstand and so on, and the then recreation director, Andy Capella, and I met over at Gardner Park, and we went through the grandstand, and we talked about what could be done to save the grandstand and, bring it back to where it could be used again, because then it was, you had some problems getting in through the doors on both ends of the grandstand. Those were kind of disrepair, and there was some rotten plywood pieces in the floor, but it was like, just repair them. You get something broken down, you fix it. You don't tear the building down. And so at that time, unbeknownst to me, they got a small grant and did a visual study of the building. And why that was done, I have no idea, because anybody could walk around the building and look at it and say, hey, it needs work done on it. And what should have been done at the time was a structural analysis.
Right.
And it was recommended, in that report from 2014, it was recommended that if the city wanted to do anything to the grandstand, they needed to do a structural analysis and they needed to do a flood elevation study. And neither one of them were done, which to me kind of indicates back in 2014 that they didn't want the grandstand anyway, so why look into it any further? And when the announcement came up that they had put $25,000 in the budget to demolish the grandstand, it was all of a sudden, whoa, what's going on here? Where did this come from? And that's where our committee came from.
I do believe that your committee saved it, because I do believe there are elements within city government who wanted it gone, who want it gone, and I do believe if you had not, your group hadn't been formed, that thing would have been taken down and people wouldn't have known it was going to happen until the day after that it was. I really believe you guys saved it. Now, I've heard into a few people, and you've probably heard this too. Okay, you're going to save it, and which, from a history perspective and aesthetics, I like it being there, but I'm not a city resident. Is it going to be used? Do you think there's going to be a new mindset? You know, like, okay, we've saved this thing. Now let's start using it.
Well, that really talks a lot to what we said when we first got together as a group. And our first meeting, it was, we're not just going to save this building because it's an old building with memories and so on and so forth. Because I was crawling underneath there as an 8-year-old looking for stray baseballs, and I've got a lot of memories of that building. And what we decided then, and it really kind of mirrored, and we didn't know this until we saw the article from 1929 that said they wanted to fill that mosquito-infested swamp and eventually create something there for recreation that would help the economy of the city. We decided at our first meeting that we not only wanted to save the building, we wanted to use that building for economic and recreational development for the city. And I think that's kind of been lost on a lot of people who say, well, we've been called just a bunch of old men working on a motion. Right. And that's not it. We feel that this is an opportunity to revitalize that whole area. We have a list of activities as long as an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper plus of activities that could be held at Gardner Park. We're not looking at just saving it for baseball and softball.
Right.
We're looking at all kinds of activities that could be held over there.
Right.
You know, from concerts to, bringing in kids and having a recreational day out in the area with stations where you got different sports and different games going on in different locations, and using it for a wide variety of things. And we feel that will really be economically help to the community. Our latest thing is, in order to really utilize the grandstand, we need to have more than just baseball there.
Right.
So we're actually looking at the possibility of, and of course, none of this can be done without permission from the city.
Right.
They own the building, they own the property, so. But in our meetings, the things that we discuss, one of them is converting that baseball field into a combination baseball-softball field.
Right.
So, and putting up lights.
Right.
And putting in real dugouts along, on the first and third base side. And, when you have a big tournament come up, the softball tournaments that come from the States,
right.
You're going to have several softball fields over there that are utilized. You've got one at the high school. You've got one at the junior high. So you could have a major tournament up here. That would turn into Field 1. Mm-hmm. So the major games are going to be played there. You're going to have, you see the crowds you get when you have softball tournaments up here. You got a grandstand that people can get in there out of the sun, or they can sit down on the sidelines or whatever. So we have a long list of activities that we want to use over there for both economic and recreational development.
You know, I think the one thing that Newport should, well, some of the leaders should understand its history is Newport might at least should take a long, really think about having it torn down, because I think in the past, decades, we've made some poor decisions about preserving our history.
That's for sure.
And so, yeah, it has to be economically viable, but, some of the things, whether it be the, I don't know what could have been done to save the train station. I don't know what could have been done to save the hotel. But Newport hasn't done a great job over the generation at preserving its history.
Right, that's for sure. And this is one of the few buildings left that has historical value. I mean, you had guys like Satchel Paige that played there, Pudge Fisk played there, Robin Roberts played there, Bob Cousy was up here when you had the skating rink and basketball courts on the other side of the river where the bandstand is. You had a lot of these athletes that have been here over the years that have come in and brought kind of a spark to the day or to the week or whatever. People still talk about Pudge Fisk playing Legion ball up here and hitting a home run over the road in left field. They talk about my uncles. My mother used to tell me about Satchel Paige and the House of Davids when they used to come up here and play. Mm-hmm. So it's there's a lot of history to it, but we feel that can be revitalized. Right. Babe Ruth is elsewhere. They're playing on other fields.
Right.
You couldn't possibly play on that field today. The baseball diamond is atrocious.
Right.
Just recently, they started digging up the base paths in the infield. We were over there, and the entire ball field was grown in with weeds and grass.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, we've got some base paths in infield that have been dug out, so it looks like a ball field.
Right.
You couldn't play baseball on it.
Right.
You could not go over there today and play a ball game on that, other than a pickup game where you're just fooling around having a good time.
I hate to say this is because I think because I know what Gardner Park used to be. It used to be a swamp, and it served its purpose. But I've noticed in recent years there hasn't been as much pride taken in Gardner Park. I've just noticed the last, maybe 5 years or so, in going down there, it's particularly like the last 3. I just feel like it's an afterthought, and Gardner Park is beautiful. It's a little run down right now, but I think it, hopefully they're able to, instill some pride in it again.
Well, it takes some creativity.
Right.
And it takes some effort. And we look at Gardner Park of all the things that could potentially be taking place over there.
Right. Well, you can even have concerts, small concerts in front of the grandstand.
They have a portable stage
right.
on wheels that they run around and have used that. They talked about having country western hoedowns over there,
sure.
and barbecues and things like that. Baseball camps, softball camps, field hockey camps, things like that where people could come over and use the field. You could have jamborees down there. You have all kinds of things you could have down there. How come the Cars of yesteryear aren't down there? They could be down there.
You told me something that I didn't know once. I think it was last time you were on. That was actually that grandstand was actually designed to move.
It's in the original article in 1939 when then Mayor Winston Prouty made the comment that Frank Saberin was the contractor with WPA,
right.
that he had designed the grandstand to be able to be portable,
right.
that they could move it anywhere on Gardner Park that they wanted to.
Right.
And if people know, then a lot of people don't realize that grandstand does not sit on the ground. There are cement pillars every 12 feet all the way around that grandstand that it sits on. Mm-hmm. There are cement slabs that are probably 4.5 to 5 feet tall, probably 18 inches wide, and about 8 to 10 feet long that the main beam sits on all the way across there. So that grandstand doesn't sit on the ground.
So it's not sitting in the water.
Right. Any flood water, that even reaches the grandstand would flow under the grandstand and out the other side. The floor in the back in the maintenance area and the locker rooms has never been underwater, never been wet. So the grandstand is in a lot better shape than people realize. Even the state didn't realize that sits on cement post. Right. But all you got to do is go over and walk around it and look at it, and you can see that.
Right. You mentioned that Frank Saber, and that's just one name. Whenever I'm going through old newspapers, he seems like he seems to be one of the unsung people of the city, because did you ever know him?
I didn't know him personally. I knew about him. I knew he was one of the premier contractors of the day.
Right. And
my mother has told me about them. My uncles have told me about him. My dad, who did, swung a hammer pretty good and worked a saw and did a lot of painting and stuff, knew of Frank Saber very well.
I read his name all over, and he seemed like a real community spirit, too. Yeah. It's just like probably another guy
He was the Malcolm Pickle of that era.
Okay. And you probably know another guy I come across all the time, and I was talking to Gertrude Essoff, whose mother-in-law went on to found the East Side Restaurant, mm-hmm. and so her mother-in-law was this Lebanese immigrant who said that they would never, that Gertrude, who's almost 100, said her mother-in-law never would have gotten her start first with the Lakeside Restaurant down where Newport Rental was for years, if it wasn't for Cy Searles, who took a chance on this Lebanese immigrant. And he's another person that I read all the time, and I'm thinking, did you know Cy?
Knew Cy well.
And was he
used to mow his lawn.
Was he a real community spirit, like sounded?
Oh, yeah. One of the old baseball pictures, one of the old baseball teams from like early 1900s.
Right.
Cy Searles is in the back row, so he played baseball for him. We had that picture on Facebook, and a lot of the local people who had relatives on that team commented about it, but Cy Searles was one of them, yeah.
Okay, we only have a few more minutes left. If people want to, you're still raising money.
We're still raising money. We just had our ATV raffle. We made enough money off that to pay for our structural engineer and have some money left over. I can't tell you exactly how much. I know we made about $13,000 on that, so we're probably somewhere in the $20,000 plus range that we have towards grants, matching grant funds and so on, because once we get the structural analysis back, we're going to have to get into full gear fundraising mode with corporate sponsors and grants and so on. We can't really do any of that until the structural engineer comes back and says, yeah, we can save the building.
And they might come back and say, well,
we know it's going to cost some money, and we know some repairs.
No, but do you think but if they come back, what's your, to play devil's advocate here, how about if it comes back and says, really, it's not worth saving or whatever, structurally it's not, would you accept that, or what would you?
Well, I think we probably would accept, I don't know if we would accept it, really, because, ourselves and from our contractors, the word from them is there's nothing wrong with this building that can't be fixed. Right. And we find just a couple of things that we look at, that the contractors look at. Right. So we're pretty confident that the building can be saved. But if it couldn't, there's been conversation about us, cutting off part of it, making it a smaller grandstand. They've been talk about saving the beams that are good and reconstructing one. But we think it would cost as much or more to rebuild a new grandstand there than it would be to repair what's there.
Right, yeah.
So our philosophy, first of all, is to fix it so it can be used.
Right.
Repair what needs to be repaired, and then worry about beautifying it after, making it look nice with a new roof and new siding and new paint and so on and so forth.
I suspect that once you get past the structural stuff, the beautification of it, you might be able to get some real help from the people, from local contractors and such.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be some heavy lifting with the structural stuff, but I think you even said you had some offers there to.
Yeah, we've had a number of people that have offered to come down and give us a hand and do whatever. They're just kind of. I think a lot of people are just sitting back waiting to see if it can be saved. I think the sad part is, for me in particular, is, we put a call out for people that would use the park and so on and so forth, and we said, we'd like to talk to you. We feel there's a future there for baseball and softball and other activities. We need to talk to those people who are against it, but they don't seem to want to talk. It was, I talked to one person that said, well, we can talk, but it's not going to do any good anyways.
Yeah.
So you got to go into it with an open mind, and you've got to say, hey, maybe there is something there. There's a future there for that grandstand and the park, but you can't do it unless you sit down and talk about it. Right. So, we're asking people, if you have something against what we're doing, let us know what it is, and maybe we can answer some questions you might have. Right.
All right. Here's one. We only got a couple minutes. I've heard people say, well, this is going to increase our taxes. How do you respond?
Well, my response would be, when we started our association, we didn't start our association to go out of existence once the grandstand was saved.
Right.
Our mission statement says we will continue to exist to help raise money to get activities for the Gardner Park.
So you want to keep it self-sustaining?
So we want to keep it self-sustaining. We're looking at grants and private donations to help repair it and fix it.
Right.
So we don't put a tax burden on the city. They talk about, the cost of maintenance. So what's going to be the cost of maintenance in the grandstand other than, sweeping and cleaning, and if a bulb breaks, fix the break. If a beam gets rotten, replace a beam. We don't see that. We see our mission as to not only save the grandstand, but continue to see that the grandstand is active and to raise money to help supplement the rec department. We don't want to take the place of the rec department.
Right.
But if the rec department says, we want to put on an activity over there, can you help us? We're there to help.
Right.
And we're trying to help with recreational and economic development.
If people want to contribute or learn more about it, do you have a website?
We have a website, Facebook page. Also, they can call myself or Paul Manette or Joel Collins or Jimmy Johnson, clerk and treasurer, Doug Swenson, Steve Edgerly, Scott Boskin. Those are the 7 members of the committee.
And what would somebody look for online? What would they have to type in?
Restore the grandstand.
Restore the grandstand. Okay, well, you're going to have to come back on at some point, and hopefully you'll be saying that the study came back good. Yeah. Sounds to me like you're pretty optimistic.
Oh, we're very positive about it. I've been in under that grandstand so many times. I can see the back wall's got to be fixed, but like Mark Stewart said back in 2014, he says just put a cable on the back wall and pull it back. Yeah. When he took out the interior walls, that released the back wall.
Right.
Just go hook it back up again.
Right.
And the beam, you got a rotten beam, you replace the rotten beam. So we feel that it's repairable. If you go and look at the roof, it's straight as an arrow right across the top of that grandstand.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you for asking me, and either myself or somebody else will be back again anytime you want us.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.